proposed public power merger reaches a standstill. We'll have the latest on Central Nebraska Public Power and Dawson Power. Plus, saddle up for Nebraska's Big Rodeo as Burwell comes together. Later, continue our in-depth look at western bean cutworm. Then, our corn takes hail damage. We'll check it out as we grow.
You're giving away everything that my great-grandfather fought for. Why would you give away the water? Why would you give away the...
It may not be over yet, but it may be at a standstill. Tractors parade through the parking lot as farmers declare victory.
This is America, guys. This is neighbors talking to their board directors and convincing them how the constituents felt this should go.
The majority of the CNPPID board supported the move to join with Dawson Power, saying it would benefit water and electric users.
The possibilities it brings for economic development, there's just a lot of great opportunities out there for a merger.
It fell a single vote short of a supermajority. So the two districts remain independent, nearly 3 years after they began talks.
We've tried to educate people throughout this process, and
some opponents suggested a new fertilizer plant near Gothenburg was somehow dependent on the districts joining forces.
I have no proof. There's been articles in the paper.
no, the Meadowlark project was not a consideration of the merger.
But the biggest frustration from farmers around the Holdridge area is the potential loss of representation and what that means for their ability to irrigate.
When we felt like we didn't have, we ended up with a minority voice, then water security got to be a really big issue.
The vote was delayed a few weeks as opposition grew. Now board members say it may not be over.
We're always willing to talk and discuss.
The leader of the opposition tells me he's not opposed to any form of a merger, but he is opposed to this one. And he said he hopes to have more talks before anything goes back to the central board. Farmers and ranchers keeping a close eye on the livestock, especially here at the county fair. With all that heat, experts say the types of cows that are very resilient against cold temperatures are much more sensitive to hot temperatures. Just like as humans, livestock can suffer from heat stress. Cattle are very susceptible because they tend to be out in wide open pastures with very little shade. Many farmers and ranchers will build shade structures or even put out big umbrellas for cattle to stand or run sprinklers. A beef veterinarian with Iowa State says it is important farmers or ranchers provide lots of water for cattle, make sure they're monitoring their animals closely for signs of heat stress.
As we watch cattle, as they starting, or if they're starting to open mouth breathe more than not, then that is kind of indicative that they're past the point where they're able to manage it on their own. And so that's when you may want to think about, doing a sprinkler, making sure your shades are up and those types of things, just by seeing how they're dealing with that.
Vets also say moving livestock or hauling them long distances during hot temperatures can also cause more stress on animals by being in confined space. The humidity is also tough on livestock because it stops the sweat from evaporating as quickly, limiting how much the animal can cool itself. The 102nd Burwell Rodeo has come to a close. Now they look forward to year 103, which should bring new facilities. It's been an eventful couple of years for Nebraska's Big Rodeo. Windstorm, a Hall of Fame induction, and one consistent through it all, the community's support. The chute opens, and the chase is on. While cowgirls and cowboys race the clock, so do organizers of the Burwell Rodeo.
Crossing our fingers and saying prayers.
Rodeo action will leave fans on the edge of their seats, but last year's storm took out a good chunk of the historic grandstands. So they scramble again to install temporary bleachers.
We have dealt 2 years now of rodeo with rented bleachers, and it's just time to get her put back up.
Not only do they plan to replace what was destroyed, thanks to a $400,000 state grant, they'll add another covered area with more options for those with accessibility needs.
Precast underneath, so it's going to look a lot like Memorial Stadium.
But that's next year, and this is now. As 4-H members drop off projects for the county fair, they see how the grounds shape up.
The kids like to come out and see the trick riders practice and all that before the rodeo even starts.
Carrie Danner says her kids count down the days to Nebraska's Big Rodeo, the biggest event of the year in Garfield County.
Everyone pulls together, volunteers, way late at night and working now. And
while slack gets underway, kids wrangle up their own timed events, getting things set for evening performances that draw around 15,000 people to Burwell.
It's by far going to be the nicest rodeo facility in the state of Nebraska.
The last few years have seen the 100th anniversary, induction into the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, and now raising big bucks for the future.
It'll be pretty close to $2 million.
I mean, that's pretty significant,
yes,
I guess.
It is. It's going to change the looks of this fairgrounds.
Visiting with Steve Niemeyer, beef educator in Garfield, Loop, Wheeler County. As we get to August, what are some of the concerns for the cow-calf guy in your neck of the woods?
Well, at the beginning of the year, we were worried about the drought, and then all of a sudden we're starting to get a little rain when we go out to pasture May 15th. We thought, oh, how long were we going to be out there? Now we haven't gone to the hayfield yet, and usually most of the guys might be getting kind of close to done the first of August, but we may not be even started up north here and stuff. Every county's different a little bit on the moisture and stuff, but
when you say not started, you not even cut hay then?
Well, the grass hay and stuff up in the hills. They've done all their alfalfa second and third cut and getting close and stuff, but when we move, we haven't even moved up to the hills. We like ours, we go about 25 miles from home. So all the equipment has to get moved, and that hasn't get done yet. So, but every county's different.
Just goes to show how things could change over the course of a year. Because we were going into this, I mean, the dominant theme was drought, and or what are we going to have for forages?
Right. Yeah, and like now in August, what we'd be thinking about maybe having an inventory of what your feed source is going to be and your supply, health of the animals. There's different options. Like if you had to leave, grass early, from pre-weaning to creep feeding calves. Naturally, the price, you hear the price, and hopefully we get more pounds and get more dollars. It's just everything costs so much, it's hard to keep up and stuff. And hopefully we have hay for the winter again and stuff like that. So they're cutting, some sedan grasses. There's different types of opportunity to get some different crops and stuff for your feed source. But then the calves, you make sure they're water. We were kind of out of wind there for a while here this week, so there was concern about having to move water and haul water to the cows in the pastures. The next thing is, pink eye, maybe foot rot. With the moisture, you got some people with foot rot out there, so you have to check and make sure they have mineral and water. And then pretty soon they'll be pulling bulls, out of the pastures already and stuff, the breeding season. And then if you got fall cows, they're getting ready, a few weeks they'll start calving again. So it seems like we do it all year round, something.
It does seem that way, but I got to think maybe spirits are a little improved for the cattle guy.
Yeah, we'll see what hawk they come here for the rodeo at night and see what happens. And then, but the next thing, like I said, they might be in the hayfield too. So, but hopefully they have a little better attitude and a little bit more hoping with the rain makes a big difference if you didn't get no hail and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. Later, yours truly has been making management decisions on some corn, but the white combine rolls through. Later, how we're going to recover from hail. Up next, continue our in-depth look at Western bean cutworm.
This portion of NTV's Grow is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
Welcome back. As we mentioned last week, scouting is underway for Western bean cutworm, and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln has become the go-to expert on this pest.
So we are doing quite a bit of work. My program focuses a lot on the Western bean cutworm. We have a variety of different projects. One of the ones I'm really excited about right now is we have done several years of chemigation studies looking at trying to come up with some recommendations and best practices for growers who wish to manage western bean cutworm using chemigation, applying that insecticide through their pivot system. We're also now taking that work and expanding it out to do on-farm comparisons between chemigation applications and aerial applications. Okay. So aerial application is very common for western bean cutworm. We sometimes encounter issues with maybe product choice or characteristics of the application. So we're really looking at that pesticide application technology. How do we get the product to where it needs to go to be the most effective and efficient at controlling that pest? We also have several other projects. We are looking at that VIP protein, the BT trait that I mentioned still works well for western bean cutworm. We're doing some work with movement of the caterpillars and where they're feeding in different refuge scenarios to try to come up with recommendations for how do we keep that protein working for as long as possible.
And in terms of the eggs themselves, I understand you guys share that then.
Yes. So we are uniquely situated here to be in kind of the heart of western bean cutworm territory. The western bean cutworm went through a very interesting change around the year 2000. It started to expand out of the state of Nebraska, and it now can be found all the way to the East Coast and up into Canada. So western bean cutworm is a problem now in other regions, and we have collaborators, other research scientists, some of the seed and chemical companies that are looking for access to populations of western bean cutworm. So we are currently the only supplier of western bean cutworm in the United States.
And I imagine Crop Watch, that's probably a resource you probably contribute to.
Yes. Crop Watch is a great resource. We had our Degree Day predictions for the moth flight of western bean that came out, and I'll also be getting a scouting and treatment recommendations article out.
We're turning it over to Kyle Kleckner. Our Grow Weather Outlook is next.
NTV's Grow Weather is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
The latest drought monitor released earlier this week still indicating very dry conditions across the Central Plains. As we take a closer look here at Kansas, some substantial improvements were made over the last week in the drought monitor. No drought now at 12%, abnormally dry right around 88% as well. Moderate drought 72% roughly, and severe drought 47 3/4%. All these categories in between a 6 and 8.5% improvement over the last week, which is very nice to see. Extreme drought right around 29 1/4%, which is roughly a 2.5% improvement from last week. In the exceptional category, 3.65%, which is roughly a 1 1/4% of an increase from the last week's report. So nice improvements in Kansas, although Nebraska not nearly as much ground was made in the improvement category. In fact, a lot of these categories are still the same as they were from the last week. 22.5% no drought, 77.5% abnormally dry, 68% still in the moderate drought. Severe drought right around 46.25%. Extreme drought 19.25%. Those are the two categories, the severe and extreme, that we had slight improvements in, anywhere from 0.5% up to a 1.5%. Otherwise exceptional, 2.63%, same as last week. So the eastern half of the state still seeing much more dry conditions across Nebraska. Otherwise, August temperatures, northern and eastern areas could see some below average temperatures, and especially that would be nice after these last week of hot temperatures. Otherwise, potentially above average temperatures in southwest Kansas, also the extreme southwest portion of the Nebraska Panhandle. And looking ahead to the precipitation outlook for the next month, above average precipitation expected potentially for eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas as well. Otherwise, pretty equal chances for the rest of our area. Next 3 months, temperatures, well, pretty similar to what we have for the next month, really. August, September, and October, below average temperatures potentially expected for eastern Nebraska, northeast Kansas. Otherwise, above average temperatures expected for the southwest part of Kansas and the extreme southwest part of the Panhandle of Nebraska as well. Looking ahead to the 3-month precipitation outlook, A similar story to the 1 month outlook as well. Portions of eastern Nebraska, eastern Kansas in that above average for precipitation. Otherwise, pretty equal chances for the next 3 months in terms of precipitation. Speaking of those rain chances, we're going to have lots of them this week. Very scattered in nature, of course, and mainly during the evenings, but lots of precipitation chances. Temperatures, though, a big swing of those. Starting off the week fairly hot, 94 Sunday, 98 by Tuesday, but we'll be cooling off towards the end of the week, 86 by Thursday, and sticking around the 80s for the end of the week. So not a bad week overall. Looking at normal highs for the week, 87, normal lows right around 66. The week ahead averaging around 92, and the week ahead average low right around 68. So we're almost there in those normal lows. Otherwise, your Grove proverb for the week, since it is the start of August on Tuesday, the first week in August is unusually warm. The winter will be white and long. So if it is unusually warm, which the first couple days are going to be unusually warm for August, we'll have to wait and see if that winter will have lots of snow, and if those temperatures will also be very cold too. So stay tuned, and we'll have more for you in your next Grow Report next week.
See your county fair photos. Go to Nebraska.tv, click Chime In, select county fairs, and upload your photos. Our corn hit by hail and wind. Up next, see where it stands.
Ag Outlook on NTV's Grow is driven by Cornhusker Toyota Honda, home of the Toyota Tacoma and Tundra trucks, and Nebraska's only dual Toyota Honda dealer.
I've been the one making management decisions on some corn this year. When to irrigate, how much to fertilize. That corn was looking pretty good when I stopped by a couple of weeks ago until the hail hit. Here's more of my conversation with Chuck Burr of Nebraska Extension.
Yeah, so probably a little early to tell yet. We kind of recommend waiting 7 to 10 days to kind of see, what plants go ahead and die off or don't try to recover. So a little early to tell. We have taken some assessments. We did a leaf area index, which is basically, how much of the area is covered with leaves out there. And we're at 3.8 to about 4.6. So typically you'd be 6 to 7 on a mature crop like we should have right now. So obviously some lower leaves or quite a few of the upper leaves stripped and taken off the plants. I would guess, probably 40 to 50% defoliation, which if you look at the hail charts for this growth stage we're at right now, just past tassel into R1, probably in that 70% range of what the yield could have been, I guess, if we hadn't got hit by hail.
Yeah, so I mean, for folks maybe who don't know where this corn, how it was looking, generally how was it looking and what stage were you seeing? And obviously it's a little different because this is a field with a whole bunch of different hybrids in it.
Yeah, the hybrids were all planted on the same day. Of course, different growing degree day requirements to reach tassel and things like that. But most of the field was tasseled. So we're at R1. So things were pretty well pollinated. There may be a hybrid or two that might be a little bit later. Might get dinged a little bit more than that, but not really the ideal time you want to get hailed. Probably the least ideal time. Because if you interrupt that pollination process, and strip those leaves, it's all yield loss from here on out. So
I've got a crop X sensor in the ground, and it's been telling me we've got a lot of moisture. So up until last weekend, as far as rainfall goes, it's been about as good as you can imagine for Lincoln County, Nebraska.
Yeah, for where we started out, until the 1st of May, we were really, really dry. We keep records here at the Research Center, and the driest February, March, and April on record since 120 years ago. So I think we're above normal now again with all the rainfall we've had. The other thing that's a little different this year is our humidity levels seem to be quite a bit higher, which reduce our crop water use. So That's probably an important point for growers to think about. With the extra rainfall and humidity, water use rates are going to be less, probably don't need to be irrigating as much. The other comment I'd like to make in terms of our soil sensors, so each one of our participants has a soil sensor in one of their plots. And from an a crop insurance requirement, you're required to keep that crop watered. If you're out there and you've had a field that's been damaged by hail and crop insurance is telling you to keep it well watered, if you don't have a sensor in there, put one in pretty quick, and that'll save you some dollars going forward to not irrigate when you don't really need to.
We will keep watching to see how things come around. Well, we're here this week at the Kearney County Fair, whatever fair you're at. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you next time as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.